Hey guys, my name is Moon and welcome back for more Witch on the Holy Night. So last episode, it was the start of chapter 10. It was the calm before the storm, and it looks like it's gonna be Toko versus Alice today. So let's continue and let's see what happens. Let's see how it goes. The following events unfolded quickly. Boldly and without a second thought, Alice pulled out a cat's bell from the seam of her mantle and dropped it. Diddle diddle. The beginning of Alice Kawanji's magecraft. The start to a night of fairy tales. Aoko favored a quick draw approach like something from a western. However, Alice preferred sleight of hand. She used her target's blind spot against them, ending the game before they knew it begun. The bell fell like a coin into a fountain. Then, as it was about to strike the ground, it shattered, disappearing without a trace.
Rune. ああ、一日かけて公園中に刻ませてもらった。
Oh, it's just her cat's bell failed?
この公園の道はレンガだからね。手間こそかかったが簡単な仕事だった。周りの森まで見て、ざっと400平米のキャンバスだ。面白いだろ？今私たちは30万字以上のルーンの上にいる。
300,000 characters worth of runes. Oh my god. So this is very dangerous for Alice now. Swallowing hard, Alice took a step back. Toko had carved runes all over the ground. Even in the area Diddle reacted to alone, there was a depressing amount of them had she truly carved them into the whole park. Alice did not react with a surprise, she simply narrowed her eyes. She could see how it would have taken the whole day. Only a day for the whole park though? It was no wonder Diddle Diddle, Banquet of the Night, was destroyed by the skin of the sun. Still, something bothered Alice.
一体どうやって隠していたの?
There were just so many. What kind of magecraft could do that?
ああ、ちょっと特別性。このルーンね、普段は確定していないんだ。こうしている今も変形している。パッと見はただの傷跡。それが強い魔力に触れると元の形に立ち戻る。
Memory runes.
形状記憶ルーンとでも言おうかな。そんなわけで、いかなる夜の深さをもってしても、この太陽は没しない。
She spoke modestly, but Alice could not imagine the amount of persistence, technique, and skill it must have taken. And it only took a day. Even 10 mages would have trouble producing so many sophisticated runes at that time. Moreover, these runes were made using unknown techniques the association had not approved of.
負け惜しみだけど、私みたいな小娘一人に大人げないわね、瞳子さん。
バカを言うな。君を小娘だなんて一度も思ったことはないよ。まあ、私好みの体だと眠めつけることはあったがね。
It happened in the blink of an eye. Alice cut off Toko's snide remark with a deadly stare. What's this called again? The left eye of darkly clad girl changed into a color to an ominous ruby. Like, didn't they say this? Was that mystic eyes? The speed of the incantation was phenomenal. Alice's mystic eyes of enthralling snared Toko. She had been the one to quite literally be taken captive by the girl's stare. Toko tried to raise her arm but could not even move a finger. Alice's mystic eyes commanded absolute control with no room for resistance. Only a person's internal organs were allowed the freedom to move. Since her organs still functioned, it was more precise to say that her eyes forbid a target from acting. Alice had played her hand with exquisite timing. It wasn't the speed of her eyes that had given her an edge. The deftness with which she wove her spells to exploit the briefest vulnerability is what made Alice a different caliber to other mages like Aoko. This witch, who lived hidden in the modern era, was more seasoned in magic battles than Toko Aozaki.
だが残念。ディドルディドルが響かないのでは魔眼のアクロスティック化はできないようだな。惜しいね。あの月目のプロイキシャーならこれで私の方はお手上げだったろうが。
The formation holding Toko began to distort. In the blink of an eye, the mage, she destroyed it. Had best as Alice's mystic eyes. Honestly, it's dangerous for Alice. She's losing. Alice's black outfit fluttered in the wind. She turned so she was not facing Toko head on. The mage had recovered her through her own mystic eyes. At the root of Toko's mystic eyes was a spell of mesmerize. Most effective when facing their prey, such eyes couldn't mind-jack a target's awareness. It was difficult to resist head-on. However, its effect was greatly diminished if the target was not facing the eyes directly, even if it was within range. Moreover, the girl was the last witch of her lineage who commanded a great number of fairy tales. Against mystic eyes that projected their effects, simply turning one's body was enough to repel half of the magical energy. Like Alice's eyes, Toko could also disable actions. Alice's had escaped by the skin of her teeth. Oh yeah, Toko's eyes are as good as well, right? I kind of forgot. Sorry. The damage she suffered was the weight of a twig to a forest. She just had to let the energy pass through. In an instant, a startling chill ran through Alice's body. There was a problem, or this was a problem. The touch of death ran up her spine. She glared at the mage before her as blue rubble rolls flowed out from beneath her overcoat. The stare-off grew more intense. Alice's glared harder, resisting Toko's mystic eyes with her own. Losing was not an option here. In terms of raw magical energy, Alice's Koonji's mystic eyes were more powerful and advanced than Toko's. She destroyed it. Surely nobody could beat her. And yet, her unfiltered stock of magical energy, stifled by old-fashioned values, was no match for Toko's madness. Deeper within her eyes, somehow the eyes revealed a sealed power. Inside the crystalline lens of the mage's left iris was a bottomless pit, a Klein cube. Alice winced in pain. The bindings grew in number. So many mystic eyes, thousands perhaps, and all fixed on Alice. Pressure, so much pressure. Endless, and Alice knew it. She saw, incredulously, she saw eyes growing within eyes. Toko had placed opposing mirrors inside her eyes, resulting in an infinite glare. It was the act of a madwoman, creating mystic eyes within mystic eyes. She could even control the resulting chaos caused by all the copies. Her insanity knew no bounds. No mage in their right mind would mass-produce so many mystic eyes, or mystics, the last escape of humankind, so indiscriminately.
やれやれ、これもお気に召さないか。私なりにマインスターの真似事をしてみたつもりなんだが、うまくできているだろう。君の悪路のように希少な神秘で現実をねじ曲げるのではなく、量産した神秘で現実をねじ伏せる。物自体はただの魔眼だが、その段数には果てがない。 相手がどれほどの魔力抵抗を持っていようと、それ以上の魔力で拘束するだけのものだ。
She wielded power without limit to disable an opponent. Once one was caught in them, one was chained to the concept of infinity. Projection-type eyes had a fatal flaw. Their firepower and formulae were insignificant compared to the great artillery of incanted spells. But Toko had torn down that conventional wisdom with brute strength. If the gun was a pea shooter, she simply needed to bring more guns. A 9mm bullet could never destroy a fortress unless one threw a fortress massive bullets at it. The principle was brutishly simple, but in a world of magecraft where concept decided supremacy, Toko had created the perfect weapon. The target would be bound until she closed her eyes. In theory, at least, the effects were infinite. No amount of magical energy could ever overcome it, so it was utterly futile to resist using magical energy. Of course, one way to counter it would be to stay out of Toko's line of sight to begin with. The standard tactic against mystic eyes was to defeat the user before they were aware of you. But the problem is, yes, there was however another way. It was simpler than one might think.
ともあれ、これで罪だ。
Alice could no longer see her enemy. Toko's infinite eyes had bound her. All she could make out was a sliver of moonlight and a blue streak tracing its way towards her.
結構悔いのない人生で羨ましい。
She drew a rune in the air, unleashing a shockwave to tear flesh asunder. The gust became blades of air that shredded Alice's overcoat and minced. Is it the blue bird? Blue feathers fitted all around. Toko felt something behind her and turned. 5 cat-shaped bells were thrown at her feet. And just as quickly, they shattered to pieces. Standing before her was a completely unharmed Alice Kuwonji.
そよ風みたいなルーンね。トウコさん、本当に鈍った？
うつせみか。術者の身代わりになるプロイの話は聞いてなかったな。
ええ。1年のうち365日は役立たずで、どうしてあんなのが古参なのか私も疑問だけど。
He's useless every
殺
other
される
day,
ことだけは得意なのよ、彼。
but comes in handy when someone's trying to kill you. Is that the bird though? I mean, it has like, yeah, blue feathers. Oh, it's there. As if responding to Alice's words, a bird began chirping frantically. An anonymous sacrifice. Who killed Cock Robin echoed into the night, sung out a tune.
ああ、そんな歌もあったな。だがあれは一度に一回しか殺されない。二度目はないし、あったとしても。
The bird squawked, a very unbird-like death crow. From behind Alice, the blue robin fell from its tree, a victim of Toko's mystic eyes. But he's gone now? No, I like that bird.
本当に使えない。
He was not useless though, he was quite funny.
さて、ではやり直しだ。あとも使えている。これで終わりにしよう、アリス。どのみちこの公園では手がないだろ。
そうでもないわ。確かに今の私にあなたの魔眼は破れない。けれど Beauty up with wood and clay, wood and clay, wood and clay, Beauty up with wood and clay, my fair lady.
The song came from the depths of the earth. stirring a mighty quake to mark the birth of something gargantuan. Toko needed to throw Alice into an infinite hell before whatever that was could be completed, but she was far too late.
The clay will wash away, falling down, beauty up with bricks and mortar, my fair lady.
Was that a huge golem? The ground burst to life. A finger, then another, and another, all rising up like towers. Earth, snow, and brick kneaded together, manifesting a giant stone golem.
そんなバカな話があるか。なぜこいつが出てきやがる。
Toko was so angry and confused, she could barely gather her thoughts. The bridge giant, the monster from the Mindster's fairy tales, rose from the ground, ruining Toko's plan. The giant was extremely powerful, but can only be summoned under one condition. It must be in proximity to a natural river. That was the monster's one and only condition. But the spark was nowhere near one. And on top of that, it was rising up directly between Toko and Alice mid-battle.
あら、あるでしょう、すぐそこに。川と呼ぶには小さな、すぐに消えてしまうものだけど。
Toko lowered her gaze. She was standing in a puddle of water. The scarred red mage was dumbfounded. That was why Alice had used the diddle before. While the bells could be replenished, they were valuable to Alice, and she had spent 5, throwing them in an intentional line for the sun runes to destroy. From there,
雪解けの流水か。
look at that thing, look at that, this thing is terrifying. The arms of the tame troll rose up from the stone paving. The monster's torso alone surpassed 80 feet. Its form was made entirely of stone. Previously, she had created one using the trees of a forest. However, Toko knew instantly the monster before her was at least twice as powerful.
止まれ。
She unleashed her stacked mystic eyes. They were meaningless at this stage, they had no effect on the giant. As said, mystic eyes can be countered in 2 ways. The first is to hide oneself from the view of the mage. That was the standard response. The other way, however, was devilishly simple, yet 100% effective. In fact, it's less of a way and more of a fact. Mystic eyes the curse of a target by focusing them. However, what if the target was too large to focus on entirely? The answer was, one could barely stop a single arm. The giant, unfazed, raised its right arm and swung it down onto the ground, destroying thousands of runes. The demolished stones were then absorbed into its arm, adding to its mass. As the mage had said before, no matter how deep the night, these little suns won't set. While the suns might not set, they could be crushed under the bulk of a giant's hand. Oh yeah, there were a lot of dogs, by the way. The victor of the battle was decided. What, is it over already? Toko Aozaki closed her eyes and prepared to escape. The stray dogs began to whine. Yeah, the dogs didn't even do anything. Fearful of the hulking figure before them.
参ったな。私ではマインスターには勝てなかったか。 まあそのあたりは今後の課題としよう。
呆れた。逃げられると思っているの？瞳子さん。
まさかそこまで鈍ってはいないよアリス。第一、逃げるとしたらそれは私の方じゃないからね。
There was no hint of bravado in Toko's tone. Even in the face of a titan she had no means of harming, her confidence was unshakable. The reason being...
ま、前座は終わりだ。来い、ベオ。
Opening act? There was no longer a battle of skill. A fight for survival had begun. Okay, snap went Toko's fingers. In response, a high-pitched melody floated up towards the moon. Bayo? It echoed all around them. The spiral howl dredged up ancient primal memories. Its source emerged from the shadows and landed next to the mage. Oh my god, a wolf. Beowulf. Alice's lip trembled faintly. I mean, that is actually quite dangerous, right? I mean, that is fast. That is a wolf. Not from fear, but with admiration once she recognized the creature before her. It was a majestic golden beast. Is it golden though? I mean, okay. I thought it was like, oh, just color white, but yeah, dirty white. Okay, I guess if it's golden. Beyond the domain of both magical and phantasmal, simply divine. It was a life that should have passed from the world with age of gods. A mystic derived from human wisdom, preserved by thousands of generations of a hidden tradition. A recreation of a miracle that once freely walked the earth, the natural enemy of magecraft, able to crush it with ease. Quiet resignation settled over Alice's fate. The golden beast charged. This time, she didn't even have a chance to admit defeat. Dude, imagine if Alice died this episode? Hell no. Come on. She could hear the beast's breathing in her ear. Honestly, I like the background, yeah, just snow and darkness. Oh! It seems she had been unconscious for a short time. Is she lost already? Alice opened her eyes and took a deep breath. No! Each cough sent pain shooting through her body. Blood rose from the pit of her stomach and she spat it onto the cold ground. When her vision returned, she was able to make out the distant sky, falling snow, and the golden wolf. Dude, Aoko better come here now. The wolf panted. It stared at Alice, saliva dripping from its mouth onto her cheek. Razor-sharp fangs lined its jaws. Its fur was glossier than any of the animals she had ever seen. Brutal knife-like claws protruded from its massive blood-stained paws. And yet, it did not smell like a beast. Surely the presence of such a noble creature, a human, would feel like the lesser animal. The battle between Alice and the wolf was over before it had begun. After destroying the troll... Oh my god, it had baptized Alice with its wicked claws, giving her no chance of escape. Wait, what is this? Her stomach? Its side swipe had torn into her abdomen like a sword, carving through her clothes and flesh all the way to the heart. Even so, not once did Alice make a sound. Oh my gosh, she's actually gonna get eaten here. A wolf had pinned her and stared at her face. Her limbs felt ready to break at any moment. That was a situation she found herself in. Now fully conscious, Alice stared at her enemy through pained eyes. She felt no fear, only cold reality sinking in. Sensing Alice's demeanor, the wolf suddenly paused. its paw still raised. They looked into each other's eyes.
そんなに血が出てるのに痛くないんだ。
Wait, it's talking. The wolf's voice, it came as a surprise. But there was no doubt it had spoken.
それとも痛いのは平気なのかな。
The wolf's voice sounded innocent, almost childlike. Yeah, true. I thought it would have like a deeper, like older voice, right? But yeah, it sounds childlike. In complete contrast to what had happened to that point, the wolf smiled.
どっちにしろ我慢強いんだね、お姉ちゃんは。
The wolf opened its mouth wide and clamped its jaws around Alice's neck.
ベオ。
Toko's tone was sharper than the wolf's fang. The wolf froze.
トウコさん。
He let go and slowly turned his head towards the voice.
とどめは刺すなと言ったろ。余計な仕事を増やす気か、バカもん。それはそれで楽しいのに。ああ、退屈。話に聞いた橋の巨人も結局は他の生き物と一緒だったし。
I mean, that golem is different though. The wolf backed away from Alice, as if no longer interested in his prey. To the golden beast, she was little more than an old chew toy.
なんだ、もう意識が戻ったのか。心もタフなら体も大概だな。骨まで砕いてその程度の出血とは。マインスターの教育の賜物かい？
Barely clinging to life, Alice stared at Toko. But not a stare of hatred and defeat, but one of disbelief. Alice simply wondered why Toko had brought such a beast.
ああ、紹介が遅れたな。彼はおそらく地上で現存している最後の人狼だ。
Werewolf?
北欧の奥地に生きる彼らの一族の中に現れた生粋の原種だよ。
I mean, I guess they're like werewolves, vampires.
見ての通り、先祖返りなんて言葉じゃ表せない黄金の神秘でね。名前がなかったんで分かりやすくベオウルフと呼んでいる。ベオウルフ。
How did you even find it though? Alice's face was perplexed, even though she hadn't wavered when she was disemboweled. Beowulf, the name of the heroic giant slayer from Danish legend. True. It came from an Old English, a combination of honeybee and wild beast. A bear, in other words.
なんでそんなちぐはぐな名前を。
ん？いや、可愛いからに決まってるだろ。
Perhaps because of the name, or because of the golden beast itself. Fighting the pain, Alice struggled to read Toko. In this respect, she was worse than Alko.
ついでに説明しておくと、周りの犬どもはベオが勝手に呼び寄せたものだ。私自身、マインスターの娘がただの畜生に傷つけられるとは思ってはいないよ。
Also, he was the one who called the other dogs, okay?
今のところはね。
Toko's mouth twisted into a grin. Not the warm one Sojiro saw, but the merciless smile a victor displays to a loser. The disdain in Alice's eyes turned to anger. The Golden Mystic. How could Toko have brought such a creature into the human world?
何？需要と供給だよ。過疎化は人間だけの問題じゃない。彼らもいい加減昔ながらの生活には限界が来たらしくてね。話し合いの末、高額で私が買い取った。
I bought him for a high price.
と言ってもあくまで里から出すだけの権利だがね。お察しの通り、私の髪はベオとの契約に使い切った。自分の髪を使って分身を作るより 強大な怪物を縛り付けた方がよっぽど健全。
Okay, so that's why. I remember they said that her hair was much longer back then. Who said it again? Was it Aoko? And she was surprised that her hair is shorter. That is why her hair is shorter now, because she used that as a contract. While she was talking, Toko noticed something strange. An unusual sound. A preternatural sound that tore at the mind. A sound that should not have existed. And it was coming from the girl's open abdomen.
もう復元が始まったか。いや、というより、これは。
So she's healing.
何この匂い。トウコさん、なんかワクワクすること起きてない？
Curious, Beowulf moved closer, like a puppy examining a new toy.
見るな、あっちに行っていろ、ベオ。正気を失っても知らんぞ。
Toko shooed the mud away with her hand. Beowulf lowered his head meekly and withdrew.
教育方針を間違ったかな。まったく、乙女の腹を見ようなんて恥を知れ、恥を。
トウコさんだって見てるじゃない。
バカ、私は乙女だからいいんだ。
If Aoko had been there, she would have blasted them away for their impudence, just as she did against Flatsnark.
まあ、しかしむごいな。こんなになるまで放っておくとは。マインスターは人の親とは言えまいよ。
With her gloved hand, Toko ran her fingers along the wound on Alice's abdomen. A flash of pain ran through Alice's body. Alice had held in her scream, but she finally let out a long breath. She turned her face away in pain or shame.
ほら、もう肌も復元している。骨格、血管はおろか、内臓にまで施されたおびただしいまでの刻印だ。生後、肉体に魔術回路を付加することは諸刃の剣だ。呪文と自分を一体化させることにより、栄唱の手間を省き、術者に多大な利点をもたらす魔術刻印。しかし、それは多ければ多いほど苦痛を伴う。青崎の刻印は腕一本分。まあ、君に比べれば少ない方だな。
Damn. The magic crest Toko referred to were the inheritance of the Ozaki family passed down by their ancestors. They can only be inherited. Aoko had received the ones that were meant for Toko.
しかし、それも良し悪しだな。右腕に刻印をした青子の痛みは、残る人間の体と神秘となった右腕とが反発する程度だ。通常の肉体が右腕を否定し、末梢にかかる痛み。精神的にも肉体的にも生じる幻痛は、現在にも似て拭い去ることはできない。だが、ここまで来ると痛みも何もあるまい。そもそも生きている実感はあるのか？自分が人間だとまだ信じている？ああ、本当に。お互い非凡な死を持つと苦労するね、アリス。
Toko took Alice's body in her arms. The wounds from Beowulf had mostly healed. Even so, her breathing was shallow, likely due to the pain. Toko gently held the girl's face in her hand.
マインスターには恩がある。それに、私の相手はあくまで青子一人だ。
Dude, what? What is she doing? Oh my god. Was she healing her? That's what? Is that what she's doing? Alice's lungs pinned or pined for oxygen. Toko pressed her lips to hers. The young girl wriggled, trying to escape, but Toko held her firmly. Beneath the blue moon, the two remained frozen. But imagine if Aoko then suddenly came and then she's like, what the hell is happening here? And then the sound of swallowing. I guess she's healing her technically. Something solid slid down Alice's throat. With that, she went limp and her arm fell. After setting Alice down on her side, Toko stood up.
今のは七かまどに手を加えた私の特製品だ。そう簡単に解毒はできない。魔力を流せば体の中で暴発する仕組みになっているから気をつけなさい。
Dude, what? So basically she put a bomb in Alice?
ああ、口移しは私の趣味だから。特に気にすることはないよ。
Wait, so is this forever now? As she desperately clung to consciousness, Alice looked up at Toko from the ground. The disgrace from the kiss was greater than the pain she felt in her body. Toko began walking away, her golden wolf in tow. Neither looked back to see Alice's hateful glare.
と、そうそう、一つ言い忘れていた。ベオが呼び寄せた野犬たちだけどね。公園の外にまだ山ほどいるんだが、困ったことに彼らは本来何を口にするべきかを思い出している。
Oh my god, man, this lady. I actually thought she was like helping Alice because she said my only true enemy is Aoko. So I thought she was gonna heal Alice, right? But then she actually put a bomb within her. If she used magic, it'll explode.
ベオの野生に刺激されたんだろう。獣はより強い獣に従うものだからな。
In a roundabout way, Toko had read Alice her last rites. In nature, it was common for the weak that could no longer move to offer their bodies up to feed the strong.
じゃあ、私は行くよ。歩くことも満足にできないだろうが、無事に帰れるといいね、アリス。
With a twisted grin, the mage headed into the darkness. As her footsteps faded, the sound of growls grew louder. Alice could still barely focus her eyes. The hounds looked like monsters out of a picture book. Alice took a deep breath, her consciousness slipping away. The sky was blue, the trees were tall, the park was a graveyard. In the corner of her eye, though, Alice could just about make out a solitary phone booth. The phone rang. It was the second time Sojiro had heard his voice echo through the cold foyer. Only a few minutes had passed since Alice called. He wondered what she could want this time. The call persisted, determined not to leave him to his thoughts.
はい、クオンジですが。
あら、その声は宗十郎くん？
There's Toko. A cheery voice. Sojiro had been expecting Alice. It was Toko Aozaki, and somehow Sojiro was not surprised.
そうですけど、トウコさん、暇なんですか？
He checked the time. He thought it was about midnight by now. No matter what the situation is, Sojiro always kept his cool. He could hear Toko trying to suppress a laugh. After taking a while to compose herself, she started talking again.
ごめんなさい。ちょっとツボ入っちゃったみたい。で、質問の開始ね。これがあんまり暇じゃないな。私も今日で終わらせる予定だから忙しいんだ。
偶然ですね。青崎もそんなことを言ってました。
やっぱり？そうね。こういう時は本当に姉妹だなって思うわ。昔からエンジンかけるタイミングだけは一緒だったから、あのことは。ところで、青崎はやめてって言ったでしょ。私も青崎だからくすぐったいのよね。そう言われるの。
Sojo realized she was probably right. Aozaki's words made more sense
まあ
now.
そんなわけだから長話をする気はないんだ。単刀直入に聞くけど。
It almost sounded like she was worried about her sister's whereabouts. But the cool-headed Sojiro had not forgotten Toko was their enemy. Keeping Aoko and Alice in mind, he decided to be evasive.
さあ、なんて答えてほしいんですか、瞳子さんとしては。
The question shifted the tone of the conversation drastically. Sojiro could hear Toko muttering to herself in annoyance. Sojiro was proving more quick-witted than she had anticipated. A change of tack was required.
そうね。君には何も答えてほしくないっていうのが正解かな。第一印象で君を無視するのは良くない気がしてたけど、やっぱり私は宗十郎くんを手にかけたくはないみたい。君はこのまま無関係でいてちょうだいね。
Her warning came from the heart. Sojo responded flatly, once again not giving any sign either way. It seemed she wanted him to stay out of this too. Even Sojiro could tell the girls were being kind in their own way. But who asked for their kindness?
じゃあ、さよならね。私は君が思ってるほど暇じゃないから。でも、最後に一つだけ。君を試すようで悪いんだけど、伝えておかないと一生恨まれそうだし。
She's gonna say, I killed Alice.
なんで、そうならないように、責任の半分を君に押し付けちゃおうかな。
Toko giggled, a laugh to show she had him in the palm of her hand from the beginning.
さっきクオンジさんに会ってきたの。彼女から電話があったでしょ。
Her tone had not changed. She sounded as cordial as before. Even so, as soon as Sojiro heard Alice's name, a chill ran up his
彼
spine.
女、今ひどい状態なんだ。満足に歩けないどころか、体中の刻印が活性化して破裂寸前。宗十郎くんが骨折の痛みを知ってるなら、うまい例えようがあるんだけどね。まあ、ともかくだ。いつ気を失ってもおかしくない状態なんだけど、災難なことに怖い野犬に囲まれてるみたいなの。個人的な意見だけど、10分もあれば骨しか残らない結末になるでしょうね。
She spoke as if she was telling a joke. If it was a joke, it was in bad taste. However, Sojiro knew this was nothing or anything but. She was telling the truth. He had not heard of the dogs attacking anyone in town, but the noise he heard while on the phone with Alice suddenly made sense. Dogs, a pack of them, no doubt about it. They were sounding or surrounding their prey. Why had he not cottoned on sooner? Squeezing the receiver in his hand, Sojiro cursed himself. Alice had been calling for help. Even when backed into a corner, she had not wanted to involve Sojiro. Still, she needed help. The way she said his name so lightly.
場所は
He spoke abruptly. Even though he knew Toko was the enemy, he was confident she would answer him. That was the reason she
教
called.
えてあげてもいいけど、そうした瞬間に、君は私の敵になるのよ。
Sojiro realized what was happening. He was being tested. By ignoring Alice, he would be confirming that he did not want to get involved. But if he decided to save
それ
her,
で場所は
Sojiro ignored Toko's question. Of course, he was not prepared to become her enemy, but he was even less prepared to let Alice die. He had lost his ability to think sensibly, and not that he was particularly good about that to begin with. Still, he would not waste any time in deliberation. He would simply go with his instincts. It was one of the few times he had felt pride since coming down from the mountains.
そう。ちょっと残念だな。私は本当に君が気に入ってたのに。まあ、こうなることは分かってたけどね。場所はヤシロギの森林公園。受話器の下に地図があるでしょ。この前帰りがけにしおりを挟んでおいたから、それを参考にすること。 繰り返すようだけど、10分持てば幸運。その後は1分ごとに奇跡の価値が上がるような状況よ。今の彼女は。
As he listened, Sojiro's expression turned to one of irritation. Misaki and Yashirogi were one station apart. How long would it take to get to the station from the mansion? Usually just under 12 minutes. By the time he got off the train at Yashirogi, nearly 30 minutes would have passed.
地図の上じゃ近いのに、区画整理された交通手段は不便よね。けど、急げば最終の電車には間に合うわ。
Yeah,
ここで諦めた方が賢明だけど、君はもう私の敵だから。
it's quite far.
どっちにしたって、後悔のないようにね。
The line went dead. Sojiro, not Toko, had hung up the phone. He memorized the map and then made for the door. With no time to grab his coat, he ran out into the snowy winter night with the clothes he had on. All that remained in the hall was a discarded map. It showed Misaki City. It was about 10 miles from the mansion to the nature park. 5 if you went in a straight line, but the streets were not that forgiving. 4 inches on the map, but so much further in reality. For the first time, Sojiro cursed the town. Dude, how can Sojiro even reach her though? That's quite, very far away. Unless Aoko notices. Right? And then she went straight towards his place. Alice's injuries were not limited to her abdomen. The wolf had punched a hole straight to her back, crushing her lower vertebrae and leaving both of her legs paralyzed. Though her magic crests were repairing the damage, it would likely take another hour before recovery. At the very least, her heart and slender arms still worked. Although after crawling along the ground to the phone booth, those too were failing her. As the crest healed her wounds, a searing heat ran through her body that threatened to overwhelm her. It was as if her body was no longer her own, like she was transforming into another creature. The poison throbbing through her open wounds hurt emotionally more than physically. She was used to the pain, but she couldn't accept this disquieting feeling. Not that she had any intention to. The moment she did, it would be her last. Alice wrestled with the discomfort from her abdomen and her magic crest. And with her consciousness holding on by a thread, she took the phone in her hand. It wasn't like Aoko would be there to pick up. Even so, with the stray dogs gathering around the booth, she had to try. Look at that detail, man. The bloody phone booth. It was Sojiro who picked up. Alice knew she was better off just hanging up, but his name slipped out of her mouth. After pausing and fighting with herself for some time, an image of the innocent boy came to mind and she hung up. Her instincts had won out. She could not let him get involved. And not just because he was an innocent bystander, it was more than that. To Alice, Sojiro appeared today because he was merely in the wrong place at the wrong time. Only the lightest of breaths passed her lips. Above her, the moon began to blur. Snow was falling again, so close yet so far. The dogs began hurling themselves at the phone booth to the chorus of hungry snarls. Thunk, thunk. She took one last deep breath and closed her eyes. Glass, an unusual material for a coffin, but the girl knew in some corner of her mind that she made the right choice not to ask the boy for help. Some time passed. A peculiar sight came into view. A field of wildflowers. Look at that. The clear sky was too blue. The flowers so numerous, they made the field look barren. The sight was so dazzlingly beautiful that she wished she could look away. This was probably all thanks to Father Winter. The cold wind carried the scent of a paradise far removed, untainted by man or beast. It was a glimpse of the fields beyond winter one could be forgiven for, thinking they were the afterlife. Come to think of it, she remembered how funerals were sad yet always beautiful. She cried. She made an incongruous whine a sound of life. Her breathing was strained and erratic. Hollow and useless was the heart that she once used to fend off pain. It was as though she was in the space between disconnected body and mind, a crying woman and a silent child. High was the sky, deep was the forest, and moving were the people. No footsteps or voices of salvation came. Who was that looking innocently up at the sky in the stillness? When she came to, Alice was going up a familiar hill. The cold night air had all but frozen her hands or feet. Wait, okay, no. She shook as you would expect from someone whose abdomen had been torn apart.
Shizuki.
Was Soldier made it to her? She could barely comprehend that she was being carried slowly up Shiroi Nuzuka. Oh, he made it. Sojiro had Alice on his back and was silently ascending the slope. His calm eyes seemed to be suffering from the bitter cold. He did not seem to be dressed for the time of year. Not even his coat. His exposed neck and hands were ice cold.
どうしてここにいるの?
Alice asked, still slumped over his frame. She tried to move, but to no avail. The last thing she wanted was to rest her entire weight on someone else.
瞳子さんから電話があった。アリスが危ないって。青崎はともかく、アリスは意地を張りすぎだ。あの状況で助けを呼ばないのはどうかしてる。そりゃ自分が言っても何もできなかっただろうけど。
Sojiro spoke with a scolding tone, his eyes kept firmly ahead. His words were directed at himself rather than the girl in his back.
しずきくんは関係ないもの。
だろうね。けどこれで関係はできた。館に着いたら話してもらうぞ。
Sojiro focused on climbing the hill. The slope would get steeper from here to the mansion. The thought of Sojiro climbing this steep hill with her on his back surprised Alice.
降りるわ。もう大丈夫だから。
お腹をむき出しでかい？この方が少しは暖かいよ。それにアリスは薪より軽い。山じゃこの程度は朝飯前だから気にしないでくれ。まあその意味はなかったんだが。
なぜ？
俺が着いたら犬はさっさと散っていった。初めから瞳子さんはそういうつもりだったんだ。アリスをどうにかするつもりもなければ時間制限もなかった。喜ぶべきことなんだろうけど。
Sojiro said dejectedly, but he was wrong. While Toko didn't want to kill Alice per se, she would not have cared if she had died. I mean, she put a bomb within Alice though, so yeah, obviously she did not care. At least that was the way Alice saw it. She didn't know how long it took Sojiro to get to the park, but if he had not come, the phone booth would have collapsed and she would be dead. Alice did her best to suppress her thoughts and feelings. She felt silly at the thought of correcting him, and it would matter little anyway. The thought of her trying to thank him was more painful than her open wounds.
もしかして公園からずっと。
仕方ないだろう。電車終わってたんだから。タクシーを使えばよかったんだけど、あいにく持ち合わせがなくて。ほんと今日ほどお金の不便さを思い知った日はない。
For the first time today, Sojiro let out a sigh. There was no point taking a break. He had already traveled close to 6 miles like this. Perhaps the fatigue was getting to him, so Sojiro was more upset with his own weakness than the difficulty of the trek.
でも それを言うならお金の大切さじゃない。
使えるものがあるのにお金がないだけで使えないんだから、それって不便って言わないか？
The innocence of his question made Alice briefly forget her pain. She too felt distant from the real world, but compared to the boy carrying her, she felt like a regular citizen.
何かあなたらしいわ。
Alice smiled to herself. As Alice rested her head, something soft touched her cheek. The collar Aoko had given him.
館に着いたら着替えるんだ。お腹の血も拭って、落ち着いたら居間で話そう。瞳子さんに言わせれば、俺もこれで敵らしいから。
With those words hanging in the air, they reached the top of the hill. The gate in the woods stood before them. Beyond it, illuminated by the pale moonlight, stood the mansion. Looking up at it, the girl felt a little disappointed. A natural reaction, yet she could not place where her sadness was coming from. Once they entered the mansion, Alice slid off Sojiro's back and walked towards the west wing. The west wing was her domain. However, after only a few steps, she collapsed to the floor.
Alice!
Sojiro rushed over to her, but she raised her hand. Her gesture told him he was not to come closer. He stopped in his tracks, a concerned look in his face. Her pale skin gleamed with sweat, her expression uncharacteristically strained.
平気。部屋に戻るぐらいの力は戻ったわ。服を繕ってくるから、あなたはここにいて。すぐに戻ってくるから。そうしたら。
The pained look in Alice's eyes told Sojiro they would talk later. He knew he could not stop her. Sojiro reminded himself that she was the one in pain and not him.
それじゃあ、戻ってきたら話を聞かせてくれ。
Alice took a deep breath before slowly disappearing down the corridor. Uneventful 5 minutes had passed. Alice returned wearing a fresh set of black clothes, but her complexion remained pallid. Of course. With a small sigh, she carefully leaned against a pillar in the foyer and slid down it until she was sitting.
アリス、傷が痛むなら無理せず横になった方がいい。
Sojiro sat across from her on the cold floor.
傷はもう痛まないわ。横になる必要もない。この体の異常は七かまどを飲まされたせいだから。
So how do we remove that though? Yeah, how do we remove that?
じゃあ、せめて毛布とか。
いいから、気遣いはしないで。
She seemed to be telling the truth. Sojiro remembered Aoko telling him that as long as Alice is inside the mansion, she would be comfortable.
あったかいのならいい。それで、七かまどっていうのは？
薬草の一種よ。7回かまどで焼いても燃え残ることから付けられた名前で、紅葉は魔除け。普通の人には良くない程度だけど、私や青子には少し厄介ね。体内での魔力生成そのものに抵抗されてしまうから手の打ちようがない。
Okay, so you basically just wait it out.
毒と思っていいのか？
いえ、本来は薬草よ。今は傷を治すために魔力を使っているから苦しいけど、傷が完治すればおとなしくなるわ。魔術さえ使わなければ七かまども反応しないから。単純な話、七かまどを消化するまで私は役には立たないだけ。
So at least that's okay. I thought it was like a bomb. I mean, technically you can say that, but what I mean is, like I thought it was gonna be like indefinite. It would stay with her until they get it out, right? So yeah, you can just wait until she digests it, and then yeah, she's gonna be back to normal again. Alice paused. She decided not to say how many days that would take. Okay.
別にしずきくんが心配することじゃないわ。
So yeah, they took out Alice, and it's gonna be Aoko and I guess yeah, definitely Sojiro versus Toko now, while Alice is still yeah resting.
こんなの血が流れる程度の痛みだから。
She worked hard to keep her tone calm. Aoko had barely blinked when she was struck in the back, so mages must have an unusually high pain threshold. Sojiro was surprised and bewildered by what she said. If wounds didn't count as long as the pain wasn't too bad, then nothing would hurt except an injury that killed you.
わかった。話をするのは明日にしよう。今日はとにかく体を休めてほしい。
明日になっても私の容体は変わらないけど。
いいんだ、それでも。アリスはもっと体を大事にしてくれ。
He stood up.
部屋まで送るよ。それとも今で休むか？西館には入ったことはないから、アリスの部屋もわからないし。
ここでいいわ。青子を待たなくちゃいけないから。
Alice looked up at the skylight. The moonlight illuminated her pained face. The foyer looked like it belonged to a rundown castle, only the moon and Alice seemed more vivid than reality. Where did their strength come from? Sojiro stared at her. Without understanding the significance of Alice's gaze, he turned his gaze to the night sky, powerless as it was. For the third time that night, the silence was broken by the sound of the phone ringing. Before Sojiro could move, a thin shadow bolted across the foyer. By the time he realized, it was a weakened Alice. She had already taken the receiver in her hand.
青子。
It was the first time Sojiro had heard Alice sound concerned. Her tone was infinitely graver than when she was enduring her own pain. Alice's question received only a short response from the voice on the other end. It was a voice more frail than Alice's, like a flickering flame about to turn to smoke. Oh no, so Aoko now is failing?
ごめん、やられた。
Oh hell no. Then now Sojiro is gonna go out again. He's gonna go down to Aoko. The phone was far from Sojiro's ears, but the words he picked up were very unlike her. Despite saying so little, no, because she had said so little, the weight of Aoko's defeat struck Sojiro hard. Alice silently set the receiver down. Only moments before, her body had been fighting the pain, and now it felt stronger than ever. It was like a scarecrow transforming into a beautiful stone statue. Seeing this, Sojiro finally understood. Alice's expression when she looked at the moon had come from her trying to accept an immutable reality. Oh, it's over. Oh my god. Did we get anything? The wonderful world deploys. The empty village. Farewell, little Red Riding Hood. Okay. Dude, that was amazing though. But yeah, Alice lost. But yeah, look at this. The name of the next chapter is Witch and the Holy Night. Are we getting closer to the end now? But yes, Alice incapacitated. Aoko lost. Sojiro now. He's definitely gonna go to Aoko now. But is that even gonna change anything? I mean, at least we saw how Alice fought though. But she was no match for that werewolf Beowulf. That's gonna be the most challenging one that they're gonna have to face. So let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. I think Maybe Sojiro can do something there. Hopefully, right? He would just punch it. I mean, he doesn't have really anything. He's basically normal. But we'll find out. So anyways, we're going to continue this and do more of Witch and the Holy Night in the next one. So I'll just see you then, guys. Bye-bye.